Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. And so, Mr. Within would like to speak about how love requires imagination and a future imagination to exist, you know? And that's a very peculiar thing about love. There's many ways people have spoken about love. As far as we know, people have loved everything. They have loved others, they have loved themselves, they have loved their world, they have loved even what is beyond their world. They have even become love. That means there's no person or thing to even love anymore. They are just love, you know? And there's different phases. This poet Rumi, he gave a metaphor for lovers, and he said it's like a moth and a candle flame. And so the moth and the candle flame, this moth has been flying around night after night around this candle flame. And suddenly the moth's wing hits the candle flame, and it's this epic moment where it's as if the moth is falling, and it's like the lovers quarrel to some degree. And the moth looks at the candle flame and says, "How could you burn me? All these nights I've been flying around you to keep you busy, to keep you so you're not alone, so you have company." And the candle flame, the other lover, turns around and says, "How could you think I would burn you when all these nights I have been shining bright so there's something for you to see, you know?" And there was something about that it's not just about how we are in the present, it's about how we can be in the future, you know? There is a love of what is actually there, and then there is a love of what the person wants there. The fascinating thing is that nobody knows anyone because we each have our own eyes and our own DNA. What we know is what is communicatable. That means I could tell you these words you're hearing me say, this is not all I see. This is just what I can choose out of the probabilities that I perceive. There's the story of these two epic lovers in the East, Layli and Majnun. And the story goes is that a bunch of people are praying, and people in this, you can say people back in the day, they prayed on these cloths, okay? And so what happens is that people are praying all in a row, and this very beautiful woman, Layli, is passing by, and as all these people are getting ready to pray, like they're in prayer mode, Majnun, the guy in love with Layli's lover, you know, he runs after her, but he doesn't realize he runs on all the mats of all these people trying to pray. Then the people who Layli just Majnun, who this guy who's in love with Layli, he's as he runs and his feet kind of disturb the, what do you call it? All these prayer mats, prayer cloths. People are praying, and the people get angry at Majnun, and Layli walks past, and the people keep Majnun and say, "Hey, what's wrong with you, buddy? Can't you see we're praying here? Can't you see we're doing something here?" And Majnun says, "Oh, what are you doing?" Sorry, they don't say we're praying. The guy says, "What are you doing?" And Majnun says to them, "What are you doing?" And they say, we are praying to God, the truth. And Majnun looks at him and says, this can't be your truth. That means the truth is alive. It is not lifeless in our minds where we are worshipping a shadow of a phenomenon we cannot see. So the thing was that to be in love was a higher position than to just be in an image of love of self. You see, love is a very simple yet complex idea. It is a very simple event, but it is very complex in its implication. You know, there's been times where I remember in my youth, I I could say that there was this girl I really liked in high school, which I couldn't somehow, in my mind, it was as if my mind had possessed who she could be to me, to my own self in my inner realms. So in my mind, I had seen her so beyond me that when I was around her, I couldn't even speak to her. I had overwhelmed my own mind from the simplicity of the moment. And that's the thing. It may seem like possession, but it's like the nature of attention. Love is the evolution of the freedom of a creature. It is the most significant evolutionary step where the creature for the first time stopped devouring its world. I feel like the stomach digests food, but the brain strangely seems to be digesting sensory perception, visual phenomena. And so I wonder, are we just hungry for more? Are we designed to be a creature that cannot be satisfied with what it is due to the nature of the changing world? That means when you wonder about human beings, we say we're an evolutionary being, you know? And in regards to natural selection and survivability and the intelligence of the ancestors that we share. The poet Rumi says, your task is not to find love, but get rid of all the barriers you have made against it. You know, if Tony Stark, I got to share this because it's about association with idea. Someone can love the idea of love, and then someone can be experientially in love, where it's as if they are in the presence of something, you know? I can tell you that in my youth, there was a strange mystical love that I felt. And this mystical love was very simple. I could tell you, it was as if an angle of nature where the simple was authorized. You know, there's been times where I've asked myself, do I love existence? And I've noticed that as long as I can envision it changing, how can I love what I see there? Honestly, it feels like the species is just trying to keep its head above water, but the water is a story. I feel we were hunting and gathering objects. Then we were hunting and gathering subjects. Now we've reached a point where experientially we want to advance. You know, there is this Japanese comic based show called Black Clover. And in this show, there are two characters, two brothers. One of them is eccentric and very energetic, and the other is very quiet. Now, they are in a world where magic is basic. Everybody, even the youngest children, can have magical power. Do you know? Now, out of these two brothers, the one who's super energetic doesn't have power. Do you know? He doesn't have any sort of power. But the other one who is very quiet has power, has great power. You know? But the one who doesn't have power in this world, he ends up reaching a point where he realizes his power is not giving up. You know? There's a scene where the brother who has power, an opponent comes, somebody is robbing the brother, pretty much in this comic strip Japanese show, you know. And so the brother that doesn't have powers runs in, just endlessly pushing, and he reaches a point where the other person has more magical power than him, and he has no magical power. And then it's as if literally the person's hope, the person's future, the character's future imagination reaches a point where, you know what it is? It's honestly like, imagine the human being, an endless source of energy, but based on the narrative it entertains, it suggests how much energy it has access to. So this character reaches the edge of maxing out its ability, and then when he's completely hopeless, suddenly this different power, finds him, in the story, literally. And I don't know, there was something there about the mentality of being what you are and sincerely maxing it out, that the person reaches a point where the only thing left for the mind to reveal is what it deserves. You know, it's strange. We love animals, but not when we eat them. you know? It's such a peculiar position. It's literally as if our mind doesn't fit our body. Our body needs to devour our mind. It wants to see, so it has to stop devouring. In the subtitle, I've written love's telos. Telos is a word which means purpose. It's the aim of something. And when a person thinks about the aim of love, if we were incredibly just purely materialistic, it would be limited to some sort of naturally selected hallucination that helps reproduction. But if we saw it more than that, it's as if for the first time, individual patterns are finding a collective moment. You know, the idea of marriage and monogamy, it's something that it's like the way it was intended is being forgotten. You know, there was this idea where I honestly, my grandfather told this to me when I went to Iran. He was like, he was pretty much encouraging me to get married, and he said to me that when you get married, it's like 2 eyes is 4 eyes. You know, 2 ears becomes 4 ears. And so it was like this notion of two different minds becoming technically the mind of one moment. And it's an acceptance of not just each self, but the other's potential self. You know? I remember I heard this love story where there were two people in a relationship, and one member of the one side was dominating the other side so much that the other person just died. Literally, he felt so small, he felt so non existent, you know, that the person had to rebel or accept, you know. So there is the thing that it's like the most important thing is to see that if you're in a room with someone else, do they see the room and do they see you? And do you see them and do you also see the room? You know, mankind has many enemies, but I will tell you, none of them are human. None of mankind's enemies, none of our obstacles are actually human obstacles. If we are to define the obstacle based on the human being, we will never get out of it. The species is hiding under language. We are ants under a rock. That rock is language. The aim of existence that is experiencing itself in a certain way is most immediately to continue the experiencing archetype. Unless the archetype completes its desire earlier, it satisfies its design, or the archetype gets forgotten because the efficiency is found, a better archetype is found. You know, sometimes you can say we don't love people, we love how our mind is with them. Because when you look at the nature of phenomena, sure, you know, but when I wonder, can atoms love each other? In a materialistic perspective, no, it's an activity. But when you wonder about the positioning of the mind, when we see that we are temporary, but the moments as they occur instantaneously have an hidden eternity in them, you know? There's a man named Farid al-Din Attar. He says, if the eye of the heart is open, in each atom there will be 100 secrets. You know, many people back in the day, they acknowledged that the heart was literally like a portal. You know, there's in certain texts it had written there were gates of wisdom, many gates of wisdom in the heart. And so if these gates of wisdom in the heart they open, it's as if for the first time the world has a different authorization. You see, right now I'm in a physical world with preset laws, you know, but these preset laws have created enough of a space for there to be a questioning momenthood, you know. Attar says, let love lead your soul. Make it a place to retire to, a kind of monastery cave, a retreat for the deepest core of your being. Attar says, the fruit of love's great tree is poverty. Whoever knows this knows humility. Attar says, a man whose eyes love opens risks his soul. His dancing breaks beyond the mind's control. In this quote, guys, is the essence of where the advanced communicators of the future generation need to head towards. Guys, I'm going to go into a quote tunnel, which is a segment of these talks that I give whoever's new listening to this, where I pretty much look at a certain theme or a certain person in history and try to look at the quotes generated from that human being to get a sense of how their inner realms were perceiving the world. The best thing we can do as human beings is to pretty much as quickly as possible figure out how human beings have looked around us and then notice our own value and position and immediately ignite our great work here, you know. For the wise, this world is a workstation, I find. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe says, "And even so, what happiness to be loved! And oh, you gods, what happiness it is to love." P.G. Wodehouse says, "Love," she said, "seems to pump me full of vitamins. It makes me feel as if the sun were shining and May hat was right and my shoes were right and my frock was right and my stockings were right and somebody had just left me 10,000 a year." Okay. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach." Robert Burns. Actually, guys, just hang on. Let me see. Okay, this quote list is better. Stephen King says, "Even when love isn't enough, somehow it is." William Shakespeare says, "Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till it be morrow." Thomas Fuller says, "Absence sharpens love, presence strengthens it." F. Scott Fitzgerald, "I love her, and that's the beginning and end of everything." Albert Einstein, "You can't blame gravity for falling in love." John Green says, "I fell in love the way you fall asleep, slowly and then all at once." Rumi, I read this actually, but he says, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Victor Hugo, "The greatest happiness of life is the conviction that we are loved, loved for ourselves, or rather loved in spite of ourselves." Jessica Katoff says, "Oh, how a quiet love can drown out every fear." Victor Hugo again says, "Life is the flower for which love is the honey." Theodore Dreiser, "I believe in the compelling power of love. I do not understand it. I believe it to be the most fragrant blossom of all this thorny existence." Mark Twain says, "Love, the irresistible desire to be irresistibly desired." I think Einstein and Mark Twain would get along. W. Somerset Maugham says, "Love is only a dirty trick played on us to achieve continuation of the species." Oscar Wilde says, "Keep love in your heart. A life without it is like a sunless garden when the flowers are dead." William Faulkner, "You don't love because you love despite, not for the virtues but despite the faults." Alice Walker says, "I have learned not to worry about love but to honor its coming with all my heart." Rainer Maria Rilke says, "Love consists of this: two solitudes that meet, protect, and greet each other." William Shakespeare, "Love is a smoke and is made with the fume of sighs." Anne Louis Germain de Stael says, "Love is the emblem of eternity. It confounds all notion of time, effaces all memory of a beginning, all fear of an end." Oscar Wilde says, "Who, being loved, is poor?" James Baldwin says, "Love does not begin and end the way we seem to think it does. Love is a battle, love is a war, love is a growing up." Dr. Seuss, somehow jumping here. We're all a little weird, and life's a little weird. And when we find someone whose weirdness is compatible with ours, we join up with them and fall in mutual weirdness and call it love. William Shakespeare says, "Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love." I could tell you one thing that's really clear, that love is an important event. Whatever happens, the physiological changes of the person, it is the I guess it is the next door. Louis de I can't even pronounce this. Bernier. Love is not breathlessness. It is not excitement. It is not the desire to mate every second of the day. It is not lying awake at night imagining that he is kissing every part of your body. Love itself is what is left over when being in love has burned away. Doesn't sound very exciting, does it? What is? No. Okay, this quote is Afro Ben says 1 hour of write down love is worth an age of dully living on it. Ann Landers, love is friendship that has caught fire. It is quiet understanding, mutual confidence, sharing and forgiving. It is loyalty through good and bad times. It settles for less than perfection and makes allowances for human weaknesses. Roger de Raboutin de Bussy. Absence is to love as wind is to fire. It extinguishes the small and enkindles the great. This is an Egyptian saying, proverb. It says, "One who marries for love alone will have bad days but good nights." Barbara de Angelis says, "Love is a force more formidable than any other. It is invisible, it cannot be seen or measured, yet it is powerful enough to transform you in a moment and offer you more joy than any material possession could." Alfred de Musset says, "I am in love and want to grow pale. I am in love and I want to suffer. I am in love and I give away my genius in exchange for a kiss." Madame de Stael says, "Love, that self-love adieu." H. Jackson Brown Jr. Sometimes the heart sees what is invisible to the eye. This is so true. This is so true that when you stop trying to process a moment and you just look at it, so many levels of information become accessible to you. Franklin P. Jones. Love doesn't make the world go round. Love is what makes the ride worthwhile. Aristotle. Love is composed of a single soul inhabiting two bodies. Now that's really metaphysical. I feel tantric love, uh, you know, the tantric practices was kind of like something I think like this, where it was technically a momentary performance of two different inner universes in the same outer verse, rather than the inner verse, let's say. Mother Teresa, love is a fruit in season at all times and within reach of every hand. Voltaire, Love is a canvas furnished by nature and embroidered by imagination. And Sullivan, the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen nor even touched, but just felt in the heart. Plato, at the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet. Plato is revealing something very crucial here. Because the way, at least I perceive poetry, is that it's literally like a two-dimensional being trying to explain a three-dimensional reality in two dimensions, so that two-dimensional being can find endless ways to write that three-dimensional phenomena, for example. Michel de Montaigne. If I were pressed to say why I loved him, I feel that my only reply could be because it was he, because it was I. Yeah. Robert Fulghum says love is a fabric which never fades, no matter how often it is washed in the water of adversity and grief. Mignon McLaughlin. In the arithmetic of love, 1 plus 1 equals everything, and 2 minus 1 equals nothing. Lao Tzu says love is of all passions the strongest, for it attacks simultaneously the head, the heart, and the senses. Dorothy Parker. Love is like quicksilver in the hand. Leave the fingers open and it stays. Clutch it and it darts away. This is one thing I would say. I noticed a strange thing going on. I personally, I could tell you it was this, that people feel what they are is not enough to just be loved as it is. You know, I could tell you someone who's spent a long time in nature, for them there is an equanimity. There is an equality and an equality of experience. And once that equality is accepted, violence naturally goes away. Once a force is not interpreted as just as a push or a pull, reality becomes a presence. I can tell you there is a presence to every being that we are simply not conscious of. That's the issue. And this presence, it has never moved. It has never wronged. And it has never changed. And if we are identifying as an object and subject in constant change, then such a truth will be far away from how the mainstream grasps the future. Chris Moore says love is to love someone for who they are, who they were, and who they will be. Telos says to love is nothing, to be loved is something, but to love and be loved, that's everything. Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo. Hugo? Hugo where? Who goes where? I shall be great and you rich because we love each other. Paulo Coelho says love is an untamed force. When we try to control it, it destroys us. When we try to imprison it, it enslaves us. When we try to understand it, it leaves us feeling lost and confused. Oh my God, guys, how long is this page? Okay, so there's literally 10 left. Okay, that'll be quick. Peter Ustinov. Love is an act of endless forgiveness, a tender look which becomes a habit. Vincent van Gogh. Love is something eternal. The aspect may change, but not the essence. Jules Renard. Love is like an hourglass, with the heart filling up as the brain empties. Love is the joy of the good, the wonder of the wise, the amazement of the gods. Plato. Wow. This is I would say this quote deserves to be in the Museum of Language, the Great Museum of Language, you know. Alright guys, I'm just going to read the last quote. Love has unbound my limbs and set me shaking, a monster bittersweet in my unmaking. Sappho, Sappho. And then I'll read one from Eric Fromm. Love is the only sane and satisfactory answer to the problem of human existence. And I encourage anybody who hasn't listened to this lecture by Alan Watts, The Spectrum of Love, definitely check that lecture out. That's one of the most important lectures a human being can hear on this planet, I feel. And one last quote. Love by Joan Crawford. Love is a fire, but whether it is going to warm your heart or burn down your house, you can never tell. Let me tell you, the biggest issue is of what the individual desires. I think there's a level where an object is desiring a relationship with an object. Then there's a level where a subject is desiring a relationship with a subject. Okay, and in order for a subject to be in a relationship with a subject, the idea is everybody resonates at their natural state, and then those who have similar natural states gravitate to one another. But if everybody is trying to change who they are, the resonance is off. So I can tell you, believe it or not, we have built a very complex looking civilization, but to function in it, you require to be very simple. Anytime that here's the thing, I found this algorithm to fear. And the algorithm to fear is that the fear has design and the design is complex. So if you are simpler than the fear can't relate to you. So what I'm trying to say is that in the most complex situations of your life, be super simple. And simple, the ultimate simplicity is, you can say the idea in the Tao Te Ching. The idea of, in Taoist thought, action through inaction. Those who understand this, the mind accesses neutrality that gives you a full scope of all design accessible. That means it's like if you didn't treat yourself as an idea of a human and you didn't treat this world as a certain kind of definition, you would be left in a state where endless subjects can relate, be relinked, you know? What does that mean? That means imagine for centuries, people have been calling, let's say, a cup, and then somebody's like, hey, I've had it. Why are we calling it a cup? You know? Let's change the word. And so imagine from cup, we get so tired, we reverse it, it becomes puck. It's like, that's a puck of tea, you know? It's like there's water in that puck, you know? So we just, do you see what I mean? It's like we haven't, the person finds like language as a sort of, I don't know, language is not evolving. If it's not evolving, it's a sign of repetition. Too much repetition means novelty is not being attempted. When novelty is not being attempted, the novel attempts at the systems that we have, the algorithms get forgotten, you know? You know, right now, even if we perceived it as evolution, where we all know that a win-win situation is a situation where we will all survive in the fittest way. But why are we not doing it? I thought we were trying to survive here on this planet. I thought the evolutionary urge was to survive. But instead of seeing the win-win as the ultimate, there's this endless win-lose. You know, as if people feeling gods to themselves through, you know, ideological pedestals. One of the most immediate things that even in religious ideology that is shared is that the truth is inconceivable. It's inconceivable. That means that that which is generating conception cannot touch it. So imagine there is a truth that you can't hold in any kind of hand. If the person truly enters silence, they will hear the endless sermons. I will tell you, it's like the sound of a. It's like in the solitude of night, the person heard the whole forest, the sound of the forest, the sound of the creatures, the sound of the wind. I'm telling you, nature has a calmness to it that it doesn't have any doubt. It's strange. Doubt is self-conceived. That means it's like we're reaching this epic moment where we're noticing language is clothing for an invisible watcher. And nobody can deny that we are looking. There is something looking. Now, this thing that's looking, we're treating it as a hallucination of just materials hovering in space. But I'm telling you, it's not. The materials hovering in space somehow have come to be an antenna. We are a biological antenna. This idea will, I will tell you, even if nobody considers this idea from me saying it, I will tell you in the future generations already have. You know, that was the key. That was the key that when in Zen they said stop, when you want to, what's the term? If you want to climb a mountain, start at the top. What that means is if you want to live properly now, start in the future. And the future means your intelligence is a probability generator. So just think of as if like you go look at a, you know, a teacup and you look at this teacup. I was about to say teapuck, guys. See, but this teacup. I don't know. Things are objects until a subject starts moving. The subject is a glass orb moving over various colors of how the ecosystem provides a space of mobility. Because if the person wanted to identify with what they see, you can identify with anything. I can identify with just being an object. We can even say, how can does a teacup does a does a teacup have a gender? We could just say we're just atoms. We could just keep it that way. Or we could say we're gods. And so the mind can even move that way. We are literally having an existential collective crisis. It's like, what is this? Atoms is the God in the atom, or is the atom in the God? Or I would say, is the spirit in the machine, or is the machine being simulated from a movement of spirit? And what is spirit? Pretty much it's unknown. Something unknown and intelligent is moving before you. So you can call it whatever. You can choose to, you know, let's say those people who consider reincarnation in Buddhist thought, they don't consider themselves as spirits, they consider themselves as re-spirits. I'm telling you, like, the whole point of the idea of the soul was that it's what's there, what's left there after form. That means if we stop looking at form and language, it's like, what would we be? Our being is based on the technologies that we use. And the mystical Rubik's Cube for the future generations is pretty much treat every human being for themselves. Treat your intelligence as if it's an unknown technology you've opened your eyes in. You don't know how it works, but some parts of it you know how it works. And you'll be fascinated. I am telling you, we have an inner life. But because we render it void by thinking that, calling it imagination and thinking only reality is here, imagination is here, but not physically. Subjectively, in accordance to design. I could visualize a giant blue cube glowing at night in the sky. I could visualize that, but it's not there. Do you see what I mean? But the design is there to me in my inner realms. So that means something is there. And for a long time, I was like, there's something very hard to explain. I looked at it, for example, let me tell you what the hard thing to explain is. The child is born, and let's treat the child as if it's tabula rasa, a blank slate. Let's not I'm not entertaining a notion of like past lives and future lives here. Just the notion of a child being born in the world, simply. You know, this child doesn't even know it's a child. The first language the child probably becomes aware, like after the lungs begin working and the child starts breathing, is emotion, is temperature. Temperature is actually, I think, the most immediate language. And from temperature, that's like the most initial duality. And then from temperature, we go to touch. I mean, instantly from the change of temperature, I think it goes to touch. And pretty much what I'm saying is different dualities are being experienced before the first conscious duality, which is the origin of self. So what does that mean? That means nobody is born as a person. If a dictator wanted to use propaganda to control people, the dictator couldn't control a newborn child. The newborn child it wasn't even an individual to itself. So what happens to the child? It's as if like the brain, like a spherical camera, is recording just the moment is the moment. So I am telling you, consciousness is being a world, then it's being a self. So you could say the brain is copy pasting. Imagine a child in a room. I personally have one of my earliest memories of this life, where I remember myself in this room on a cradle, on this elevated cradle, and Just no language, no name, no self, just a snapshot of sight moving slightly in a room. And that was there. In my own memories, I found that language was hollow. That sight is here way before the masks it creates and wears. So what does that mean? The newborn child copy pastes the sense of world, then as it perceives individualism more and the parents communicate to it, call its name and all this, the child suddenly becomes a person. Because when you try to remember, it's literally you awaken to individual consciousness. That means there's a physical existence, then there is this experiential existence. And Jacques Lacan was saying that this is called, like Jacques Lacan called it, the mirror effect. Pretty much the most important moment in a human being's life is like when they as a child look in the mirror for the first time and notice they're an individual. So what does that mean? That means the brain is copy-pasting the world to itself, and from that world, choosing endless probabilities to manifest as a self. So if we are being a world, that makes sense how the self knows all this stuff and has free will. You know, we think we are a self in a world and we have free will, and the free will doesn't make sense. But if we realize we are a world and the self is an extraction from it, that makes perfect sense. That means technically we are planetary intelligence that has named itself. We are the planet's intelligence. We're some intelligent phenomena from the planet. Call it what you want. Oh man. The best thing the person can do with their past is to realize that it has passed. And the best thing the person can do with their present is to realize they're present now. And the best thing the person can do about the future is to plant seeds in the present, water it from with the past, and continue until the future comes to meet you. You know, what it is you generate an energetic expression and the echo of it finds you as a sort of the invisible other. That means if the mind, if there's 0.0, whatever amount of zeros you want, 1% chance that we are multidimensional, then we are believing the tree without realizing its roots go beyond our sight. You know, guys, I would like to read for you something from an essay I wrote in 2000, I don't know, 17, 15, one of those years. So this book is called The Source of Language, and it's pretty much a series of essays I wrote, you can say with the intention to explain what I felt was the source of language. And one thing I'll tell to anybody who's reading what I wrote this book, I don't have kids, but I wrote it as if I had kids, they would honestly know who their father was. So these books, I can tell you that sometimes the things I read may be a bit personal to me. It may not be even comprehensible to the audience, but the eyes can leave behind stories worth seeing again. This essay is titled "The God Within the Animal." It can be said, the body is an animal, your mind is God, or rather your body is made of earth and your mind is made of sky. Therefore, all communication can be said to be the communication and movement between the earth and sky. The body and mind and the animal and God. I'll read that again. Therefore, all communication can be said to be the communication and movement between the earth and sky, the body and mind, and the animal and God. Eastern mysticism shines upon the view of the world that it is an unspeakable organism beyond the description of its parts. What that means is that from the shadows you cannot discover the true nature of the sun. Let us find the enlightenment that is quicker than light. For if you were an artist that wanted to draw your greatest memory of existence on a canvas ready for visual paint, how the world happens is quite the most beautiful thing. Many think life is about its length, but it's about its depth. The depth of life experience is a suggestion that when you wonder what is the best way to live life, it will be said you can get lost in a game of duality, which is the unhidden world that language walks on. Or you can liberate yourself from how if you were to think beyond thought, there would be no thinker. Suddenly, the words of language have finally found themselves transparent to the world of direct experience. How you acknowledge this moment is important because every idea that you have on your moment will create an unconscious cycle of karma. In other words, language and art for the conscious self-aware being can no longer be separate. How the moment must be acknowledged is that when you ask, who is asking, who is the seer of thought, how is there also here, the source of language is always beyond what the language is. As Mr.Within has said, the letters of the alphabet are not enough. This universe is not a tangible, fixed concept or idea. It will never be. For as long as we have imagination, science cannot have the loudest voice. A self-reflective, divine, direct experience will suddenly, through the gates of silence and stillness, very intensely tear up egotistical conclusions about reality. In a presence in which if you looked in your morning mirror, you would not see yourself as separate from the universe, but as the whole universe, as one moment of absolute being. You're not just looking in the mirror, the whole universe is. Are the letters in the alphabet enough? Enlightenment is stepping out of time to a self-reflection beyond time. No two people would be one person, for there would just be one person. When you flow with your true nature that is this whole moment, you don't connect too many ideologies to self, for self is your pure moment, always as it was, always as it is. There is no supreme idea of a hierarchical intelligence with anger issues. The God of the heart is the best God, for it beats as the center of the breathable universe. Behind the eyes of ideas there is no third eye of an enlightened master. There is the beauty of a moment that is its own mirror. Polished by nature, we are all divinity's work. If you look closely at these letters, you will see they are artwork. For abstraction is only pushed back by society's reality. For language was the smudge, and direct experience is the glory wiping the mirror of new vision. The mind, conceptually, is void but rich with subjective design. Has a thought taken off its mask? Has your solar presence, S-O-U-L-A-R, has your solar presence realized it was never an individual soul and the teacup had to be empty before its full? Can Zen masters break dance? Are words fighting back? The mystery of conception always points to an axis unconsciously thrown into the endless abyss of the unknown. Is your personality an unnecessary scene for your true presence? What has the Buddha said that we have not listened to? Whose story is history? Transcendence means direct experience is all that is happening. Beyond planes of action, the wise man listens to the self beyond words, in which sincerity has made too humble to hurt a dying world. How do the eternal behave to temporal rudeness? Don't stay thirsty, my friends. Just walk omnisciently as your true nature. Imagination and technology are the horses, if logic, rationality, and divine intuitive intelligence are the chariot. Now, wonder, dear reader, who is sitting in this grand picture that is the chariot of the moment? What is the texture of your experience, or have you not playfully discovered the oneness of love yet? For in selfless devotional service, like the tree, I lost the line, guys, hold on. Like the tree outside, to our moment we shall live fruitfully without prior karmic disturbances boomerang from insincere moments of unnecessary actions of thoughts. A smart man looks in front of him. A wise man is the whole moment that sees. Beyond ordinary perception, just like the stars promised, we are extraordinary. Creativity means, on the surface of the rock, there are flows of communicating intelligence. As if our consciousness was a drop of intelligence, it is rather present through a river of multidimensional intelligence. So beyond the conception of ideology, that with a simple awareness to what is within us, we have not only become the source of language, but the source of all light. There are two ways to look at our world in regards to a multidimensional context. Either we are within another world, or another world is within us. It seems the cosmic fractal in nature of the body never stopped growing. Wisdom originates from self-reflection. Trust the moment and let the divine smile. You are the whole of life, not a part of it. You are not on a spinning rock in the middle of nowhere. You are. The R is in caps. You are your whole moment. The whole is in caps. Beyond these words, you are your own enlightenment. We must conduct our consciousness with the full awareness of our whole moment, regardless of how multidimensional or not it would be. The pilots of consciousness are here to navigate as the whole moment of existence. Cough, cough. I wrote that in brackets, I don't know why. That includes enlightenment too. How much do you trust the intelligence that you are beyond language? How does Pegasus fly and ride the floating fields of paradise at the same time? Perhaps if you stop thinking, you're a thought that gets wounded by disassociation. Realize you're not a thought and you never were. You're a moment of existential experience, untouchable by all that is, for it is defined, based, and by all of it. My beloved friend, you are your own torchbearer. God is already its own exploration. If you only think you are a creator, in brackets I've written self here, you will build blindly. Be your moment. There is nothing simpler than that. Are you reading this book or self-reflectively observing how the nature of your mind emanates into reality? It's simple. Be sincere. And the seer of all sin is beyond sin. You are the path. There is nothing else. And the essay ends, guys. That's the end of the essay. There's 3 quotes I've written here at the beginning of each essay. In this book has 3 quotes in it. The essay is these 3 quotes are, one is from Ludwig van Beethoven. Don't only practice your art, but force your way into its secrets, for it and knowledge can raise men to the divine. Seng Chao, heaven and earth and I are of the same root. The 10,000 things and I are of one substance. And the last quote from Rumi. I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as plant and rose to animal. I died as animal and I was man. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? Yet once more I shall die as man, to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on. All except God doth perish. When I have sacrificed my angel soul, I shall become what no mind ever conceived. And you see, guys, that's the whole point. The animal is like the kinetic energy. The God is like the potential energy. And we've spread this out through a grid of language-based realism, you know? I think the healthiest mentality is that we treat what is behind our eyes as the unknown, and what is in front of our eyes as also the unknown, and the presence of the moment is the only state of the knower. This technically means our mind is space, and objects and subjects are like matter in this space. The mind was here, or was required even here, before even matter could be perceived. Nature is like you're born into a codex that your behavior is part of, like the code, you know? And the solution is left to your own eyes, how far you choose to see while you can. it feels like the world is this geometrical phenomena that could be realigned in endless ways with the ability of the mind to look at something long enough to see a new dimension to it. Light enters our eyes and a conscious subjective character in the story steps out. It's like, whoa. Sometimes the meaning of life can be so simple. I want to tell you the story. This moth, this moth, like an actual moth, it's night and he goes to this doctor, you know, and the doctor is surprised, a talking moth. And the moth says to the doctor, "Doctor, I got a problem. You got to help me. Sorry, the moth says, "Doctor, can I tell you what's up or something? And the moth says to the doctor, "I'm having a divorce. I have trouble with my wife. My kids don't listen to me. They don't even know me. At work, I am like, inferior. There's nothing there. And so, like, the moth is just going on saying all the types of suffering it has, you know. And it says, like, something even so intense that I've even thought of, you know, even going into a candle flame, and even something chaotic like that, and just it's like this moth is going, and the doctor is like, "Oh my God," you know. And then the doctor says, "Hold on, hold on, hold on," and stops the moth, you know. And the doctor says, "I'm a human doctor. You're a moth. But why did you come to me? Why are you here?" And the moth says, "Because the light was on." Sometimes, believe it or not, living too much for the future, you can kind of miss out on you get this feeling that you're missing out on your own life. Sometimes when you speed past something, like I've had this feeling that, okay, what if I had experienced it in a slower way? But then you see there's so many ways to experience things that it's not, the point is not finding perfection. The point is just finding something workable enough to get you to the next phase, workable enough to get you to the next phase, and that next conscious experience, next conscious experience. And the unknown is so crucial because in this really maxed out kind of information age, where like, after the person has satisfied their physiological needs, the person is just looking at information. It's kind of cool. It's like the internet is allowing people without traveling to see the world. I feel like people over time, technology is has started this massive globalization. You know, I don't know how to say it. It's literally like people are not just being born in accordance to the ideology around them, also the ideology they have access to. Back in the day, the philosopher had to go on horseback for days just to find another library to find a book in. Now we just literally need to type it. It takes a couple seconds and the information is here. It's like first people sought the perfect information. Now after we have the perfect information, it's like that's not enough. Now it's like, how do you use the information? Let's say a person's like, I want truth, and suddenly they got truth. Now the next question is like, how do I use this? What do I do with truth once I have it? I would say that a lot of poetry has been inspired from love, and that's an immediate just proof of how love requires imagination, because it's the possibility. It's like it's the sort of, I guess, romanticism of what could be, that is as alluring as what is actually there in the moment. There was this guy in India where he wrote a book where his wife was so enlightened that the wife felt she was married to God. And of course, in an Indian culture, that is interpreted differently than how the West may interpret it. But that she felt her husband was Krishna, God, right? But she actually had a husband. So it would be like moments where the it was as if the wife could see God in her husband and in everything. It was like that level of a situation. And this dude was pretty much saying how there was moments where it's like the behavior of the wife wasn't a love of a human conditionally. Okay, things are good, all right, we stick around. Things aren't good, all right, bye. It's not. It was it was a sort of thing where it was as if like it was the significance of the event. In the chat section, guys, Kushbu says, for me, love is reminder of mortality you're talking about. I would tell you it is also a reminder, but it is an eternalization attempt of a moment. It's a timeless moment because the moment has no expectation. Not in regards to the outer realms, I'm talking about in regards to the inner realms. You see, because like whatever you say about a person's character, they have a biology at work. Do you know what that means? That means if you ask someone who's tired something, they're more agreeable. Do you know? So that means so much of our character depends not only on just the potential of our egoic, thought inhabitation. It's like we are either a body projecting itself as a mind, or we are a mind, field of mind, where a body is moving in. I could tell you the word mind is gonna, it's not like I use it. The traditional view, like in my youth, I remember even there was a book called Body, Mind, and Spirit, something like that, you know? And this body, mind, spirit, this idea of it was like, okay, these three levels to the self. Even the Bhagavad Gita says the horse, imagine a chariot where the horses are the body, the chariot driver is the mind, and the soul is sitting inside the chariot. Now imagine the chariot driver, which is the mind, gets sleepy while he's holding the horses. Now the cradle shakes. What happens? The soul steps out of the chariot and wakes up the mind. And what the soul is a field of attention. What does that mean? That means the moment we consider we're temporary, we have instantly created the possibility of our eternalhood. Because we can't comprehend the temporary without the idea of the eternal. They're literally like night and day. It's like, what does day mean? The absence of night. What does night mean? The absence of day. Do you see what I mean? It's like they're codependent. And this codependency of the potential of the moment and the honesty of what the being is. Because I will tell you, it's like being simple. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to say it, but I could say There's this idea that many banish and exile their inner child. That yet the inner child is a memory. What does that mean? That means the child psychology is developing. The child has a certain sense of morality of what is right, what is wrong. Now, this child does something or experiences something, or something happens to the child that, in some sense, the child suddenly sees the inner child memory can't stay. That means I feel sometimes the reason certain memories are dependent to what we are identifying. Because sometimes if you remember something that changes how you are being now, automatically the archetype wouldn't even go there. That means the conscious attention doesn't shape itself in accordance to what it feels it doesn't serve the moment. They say, how can a person love others if they don't love themselves? How can a person love their world? How can a person love their self without realizing that self only exists because they have separated something from the world which they require to consider there to be first? You know what it is? You know how we perceive as for the species reproduction to be the ultimate purpose, the continuity? I kind of see it. We should just focus first, building an advanced civilization to be the purpose, and then party till the end of time after we have an advanced civilization. That means we're sacrificing the joys of now to create an incredible, joyous possibility for the future. It's always a line. Because I could totally see we're not actually designed. We're designed. This may sound strange, but I feel the body is not designed to be on the ground. Do you know what I mean? Because think about it, the person sleeps. Imagine every person who sleeps, what's happening? Your body is lying down on a flat surface and gravity is pushing it. So those people who sometimes find themselves having scoliosis is because they're actually sleeping on their stomach a lot. But if you slept on your back, gravity is pushing everything down. You know. Now here's the thing. I feel the most perfect bed it's not a perfect mattress. The most perfect mattress is anti-gravity. I feel actually in the future our beds should be just human beings hovering in the air and sleeping. That's it. Because the body shouldn't have the pressure of anything else on it. Gravity is enough, you know? Because when we sleep, think about it, it's like all the half one half of your body is being flattened, you know? But I'm saying, like, yeah, that's I don't know how I've walked into this idea, but I guess, guys, I'll end it off with this one last quote where in the Diamond Sutra they say, keep your mind alive and free without abiding in anywhere or anything. And I feel anybody who feels they love anyone, if you don't love the world, you don't love anyone in it. If you don't care for like the species and its continuity, it's as if like, it's like, what are you doing here? Guys, I just remembered to quote a poem from Sadi. I'm going to read this. And the mythical ending of this talk will appear, hopefully. Sadi says human beings are members of a whole, in creation, of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. That means if you don't consciously excuse my language, give a shit about how far the species has come, you know. It's like, it's like there should be this thing where it's like something said to every human being, like pretty much it's said to every mind: be a human being first, then do whatever you like. That means realize that there is a sort of natural creature way before language. The purpose of this creature was to continue smoothly, not for language to territorially conquer it. So remember, as Sadi says, if you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. And if the person can totally be comfortable with the simplest version of themselves, they will very easily soon become comfortable with the complex. Because once you're not afraid of the simple ways that life can happen, the complex ways are only simplicity building layers upon itself. That's it. So the secret of life is as quickly as possible to comprehend attention is now. What can be said? Thanks for listening, everyone. Much blessings and namaste.